Hey, I saw this headline earlier this week that really made me stop and think
Oh, yeah. What was it?
about that Delta flight in Orlando on Monday the 21st, flight 1213.
Ah, yes, the one with the engine fire. Right
Yeah.
there at the gate. Pretty dramatic stuff.
Exactly. An Airbus A330, so, a big plane, is heading to Atlanta, just pushing back around uh, 11:15 a.m. local time.
Yeah, and then suddenly an engine fire. It's not something you ever expect, especially not before you even leave the gate area.
And they had to evacuate using the emergency slides. That image just sticks with you.
It really does. But the key thing, the immediate takeaway was
No injuries reported initially, right?
exactly, which in a situation like that is frankly the best news you could hope for.
Absolutely. It says a lot about, well, presumably the safety procedures working.
It really does. That sort of outcome with a fire and an emergency evacuation doesn't just happen by luck.
So let's maybe unpack what we know happened based on the reports. It starts pushing back.
Yep, just starting the process to taxi, and apparently that's when an engine catches fire.
And the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, they confirmed it was an engine fire pretty quickly.
Yeah, they put out a statement, made it official.
And the airport response? Sounds like they were on it.
Seems like it. The report mentioned fire crews got there fast, contained it, and put the fire out. Rapid response is just crucial in these moments.
Definitely stops things from getting worse. Okay, the plane itself, Airbus A330, that's a two-engine jet, right?
Correct. Wide body, two main engines under the wings.
And the fire was seen specifically in the tailpipe of one engine. What does that usually mean, seeing flames there?
Well, the tailpipe is essentially the exhaust nozzle. Flames there could suggest maybe incomplete combustion, possibly an issue with fuel delivery or airflow within the engine itself. It's a definite sign something's wrong internally.
Okay, investigators will be looking right at that.
Oh, absolutely. That's ground zero for the technical investigation.
And it wasn't an empty plane either. 282 passengers,
Wow, that's a lot of people.
plus 10 flight attendants and 2 pilots. So over 300 people total involved.
Yeah, and evacuating that many people smoothly and safely. It really highlights the crew's training. They practice those emergency evacuations for exactly this kind of scenario.
And the evacuation method can be those inflatable slides. I mean, necessary, but
Yeah.
probably quite an experience.
Oh, for sure. Not exactly how you plan to start your trip. One minute you're settling in, the next you're sliding down a chute.
And then everyone just went back to the terminal building. That's a bit surreal.
Definitely jarring. You go from the routine of boarding to a full-blown emergency and then back to the relative calm of the terminal. Lots of adrenaline, I'd guess.
Delta, for their part, they apologized pretty quickly, right?
Oh.
Emphasized safety first.
Yes, standard procedure, but important. Acknowledge the disruption, reassure passenger. They also said they'd bring in other aircraft to get people to Atlanta.
Which is what you'd expect. Try to minimize the hassle after something like that.
It is. It's a major logistical puzzle for them, rearranging flights and planes, but passenger care is the priority then.
So the big question now is why it happened. The FAA is investigating.
Right, and Delta's own maintenance teams will be scrutinizing that aircraft, especially the affected engine.
What does an FAA investigation look like, generally?
It's incredibly detailed. They'll look at maintenance logs for that specific plane, potentially for the whole fleet type. They'll interview the crew, maybe passengers if relevant. They'll analyze the flight data recorders, the cockpit voice recorder.
Black boxes.
Exactly. And they'll physically examine the failed components. They want to find the root cause. Was it a part failure, a maintenance issue, something else?
And the goal isn't just figuring out this incident, but preventing future ones.
Precisely. Findings often lead to safety recommendations or even mandatory airworthiness directives for airlines worldwide.
Okay, now here's where it gets perhaps a bit more concerning, context-wise. This Orlando fire.
Hmm.
It wasn't exactly a one-off for Delta recently.
No, the reports did point that out. It seems to be part of a string of incidents or aviation spares, as one outlet put it.
Yeah, that phrase caught my eye. Makes you sit up a bit.
It does. Even if the incidents are unrelated in cause, the frequency involving one airline naturally raises questions.
They mentioned one back in February in Toronto, a Delta plane landing in bad weather.
It flipped upside down, right? During landing in wintry conditions.
Yeah, which sounds terrifying. 21 people were injured, though thankfully all were released from hospital later. Still, a plane flipping over.
That's a major event. Indicates a significant loss of control on the runway. Weather was a factor, but investigations look at everything. Pilot actions, aircraft systems, airport conditions.
And then before that, in January, another one. this time in Atlanta.
What happened there?
A Delta flight aborted its takeoff, high speed presumably, and again, emergency evacuation. About 200 people using the slides.
Another evacuation, so that's 3 incidents involving evacuations, aborted takeoff, runway excursion, engine fire in just a few months.
Seems like it. January, February, now April, all Delta.
Okay, yeah. When you lay it out like that, while each incident needs its own investigation and might have distinct causes, you can see why it's drawing attention.
It really does make you wonder, doesn't it? Is it just bad luck, a statistical cluster? Or does it point to something, more systemic?
It's the question everyone asks, and it's vital not to jump to conclusions before the investigations are complete. But the pattern itself is notable.
And you think about the broader impact. Even if safety systems work and people aren't seriously hurt, these headlines can make people nervous about flying.
Understandably so. Flying relies on a huge amount of trust in the airlines, the manufacturers, the regulators. Incidents, even contained ones, can erode that a little bit.
It's that feeling of vulnerability, I suppose. But like we said about the Orlando fire, the procedures did seem to work. Evacuation was successful.
That's the crucial counterpoint. The layers of safety crew training, aircraft design, emergency protocols, air traffic control, they are robust. They're designed for when things do go wrong because mechanical things can fail.
And the investigations are part of that safety net too, learning from what happened.
Absolutely. The FAA and the airline safety teams will dig deep. That's how the industry maintains its overall safety record, by learning and adapting from every single incident.
So let's just sort of recap. We had this Delta engine fire in Orlando Monday morning, plane pushing back.
Airbus A330, lots of passengers, engine fire seen in the tailpipe.
Crucially, everyone evacuated safely using the slides, no initial injuries reported, which is great news.
Definitely the most important piece. Safety protocols worked as intended in that moment.
But this isn't happening in a vacuum. It follows those other recent Delta incidents in Toronto and Atlanta.
Right, the runway excursion and the aborted takeoff, both also involving evacuations.
So the FAA and Delta have their work cut out for them investigating this latest one.
They do. They'll need to determine the cause and see if any broader actions are needed.
And I guess, thinking about all this, it reminds you that flying is incredibly safe overall because of all these systems and oversight.
Statistically, it remains one of the safest forms of transport by a huge margin.
But when you see several incidents involving the same major airline in a relatively short span, it does make you pause, right? It leaves you wondering, what does that pattern signify, if anything? What should we, or regulators, be looking at more closely?
It's a valid question. Ensuring that level of safety requires constant vigilance, not just reacting to incidents, but looking for any potential leading indicators. It's definitely food for thought next time you're booking a flight or waiting at the gate.